Hey everybody, Mr. Covey here. Sorry, I'm not at school again today. I will be back for the block day. Don't worry. Thanks for bearing with me. The game plan for today is really just two big things. Big thing number one is watch this video. I'm going to go over some graphing. Okay, so there's a couple of big things in this first unit. Really just two big things. Two of the biggest things. The first is solving. On the block day, we'll do more practice with solving. I feel like you guys have been doing an awesome job with the solving. So that's one of the big things. And then the other big thing is graphing. And today we're going to talk more about the graphing. On the block day, on Friday, we'll talk more about the graphing. Cool. So in this video, I'm going to go over some pages in your packet, 19 through 21. I want you to take notes, follow along. That's kind of the game plan. The second thing is you can work on your homework, which is pages 23 through 25 in your packet. Okay? Cool. I'll be back on the block day. And then I also wanted to remind you guys, tomorrow morning is PLT. I will be there. It is from 7:45 to 8:45 every Wednesday morning. The reason I wanted to remind you about it is because it's the first one, but also because I won't be in our classroom. The teachers pair up with each other, and so I will be in room 275. It's Mrs. Fry's room. If you walk out of our classroom and you walk out of our room and you hang a left and walk towards the library, and then instead of going to the library, like the upstairs study hall part of the library, if instead you stop and you hang a right, it's on the right. Cool, so kind of like if you're going on your way to the math office. So I'll be in room 275 from 7:45 to 8:45 tomorrow morning if you want to come and ask questions, talk about anything. If you have any questions about this video, that'd be a great thing to do. Otherwise, on the block day, I'll get you guys all caught up and make sure we're good. Cool. All right, let's dive in. I am on page 19 here. Sorry, let me get there. Okay, I'm on page 19 here, and this is all about graphing. Okay. A couple of big takeaways. The first one is whenever you're graphing something, I mentioned this yesterday in that video, you can always make a table. It's kind of one of those techniques, like if you have the strategy down, it works in every math class you'll ever take, no matter how hard it gets, you can always make a table. Okay? So if I'm trying to graph this, let's say you have no idea what the graph looks like. I don't know. You don't remember anything. That's cool. Make a table. The way to make a table is you pick the x's, plug them in, and get out the y's. And then once you have an x and a y together, that tells you a point that you plot. You plot the points, you connect them, you make the graph. Okay. What x's you pick is up to you. I might pick -3. It's usually good to pick some positive, some negative. Okay? I might pick -3. You know, a lot of people do like -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, or something like that. That's kind of a normal way, like pick some in a row, but you don't have to do that. You can pick whatever you want. Okay? When I say we're plugging those x values in, what I mean is, I'll show you like for -3, is we're taking our equation and we're literally replacing the x with -3. We're leaving the y as a y, and then we're going to figure out what the y is when x is -3. You can type that in your calculator. I'm totally fine with you typing it in your calculator. Okay, -1/2 times -3 minus 4, you should get -2.5. What that tells you is that -3, -2.5, if you want to write it like that, it might look more familiar. Those x and y's go together. That's a point on the graph. -3, -2.5, that's a point on the graph. That's an x and a y that go together. Okay? I want you to go ahead and pause. Excuse me. And you try and plug in some of these other points. Plug all the rest of those in. Pause the video, plug in those x values, see if you can get out the corresponding y values, and see if you can plot those points. Okay, go ahead, pause. Try and get the rest of these y values and try and plot those points. When you unpause, I'll run through it real quick with you. Cool. Okay. You should get these y values. So the points should look like this. And then don't forget, it's a graph. And so you should take all those points and you should connect the points. And that's the graph. Okay. Now in this case, there was a shortcut. And some of you guys might be like, finish this in 1 second, be jumping up and down, and be like, I know a shortcut. And that's because this equation should look familiar. It's not a like crazy weird equation. It's y equals something x minus something. It's y equals mx plus b. It's a line. And if you look at the graph, you're like, oh yeah, the graph was a line. It wasn't some weird curve. It didn't like swiggle. No, it was just a regular old line. The way to graph a line is something I'd like you to do. You can always make a table. It kind of took a long time. The shortcut that I'd like you to know for graphing something that's in y equals mx plus b form is to figure out the m, figure out the b. So let's start with that. Here my m is -1/2, and my b is -4. The m is the slope. It dictates how steep the graph is. The b is the y-intercept. It dictates how far up or down you start the graph. And if you put those two things together, you can graph the line. You actually start with the b. -4, it's the y-intercept is what it's called. You go on the y-axis, you go down to -4, and you put a point. And you'll see that red dot that I just put lines up with the points that we got from the table. So this isn't a different graph, it's just a different way to generate it. It's the shortcut way. After you have the y-intercept, the starting point, the slope, tells you how to get the other points, tells you the pattern. Again, I think about slope as telling you how steep the graph is. If it has a negative slope, like this one, it means it's going down left to right. That's a negative slope. If you have a positive slope, it's going up. So this graph's going down. And then when you think about slope, you always hear that phrase rise over run. And that's because your slope, if it's not a fraction, it's easiest to think about it as a fraction. And that rise over run is how much up and down, and then how much left and right. So if my slope's -1/2, I'm going to go down 1, and then I'm going to go over 2, and I'm going to put a point. And I'm going to go down 1, I'm going to go over 2, and I'm going to put a point. And I'm going to continue that pattern. Down 1, over 2. Notice that I'm doing it left to right. Yep, just like you read left to right, you do the slope left to right. Down 1, over 2, and I put a point. And look at all those blue points I just put. They line up with my line. If you want to do the pattern the opposite way, just like flip it around, right? So instead of going down and over, instead of going down and right, you'd go up and left. If you go up 1, left 2, you'd see, oh yeah, those points are also on the line. You get all those points, you generate the same graph without making the table. And that's kind of the cool part, is if you can kind of bypass that and make the table part. Cool. Okay. How does this get harder? Well, you walk up to something like this. Now you look at this, you're like, that's not y equals mx plus b. Nope, it's not y equals mx plus b. So there's a couple ways to do it. I'm going to do the table way, and then I'm going to show you a shortcut. Table way, pick some x's, pick some different x's. I'm going to do -2, 1, 5, 3, 7, 0. Plug in the x's, find the y's. Now I want you to notice something. When I plug in the x, look at what I have here. I plugged in the x, I'm trying to figure out the y. I've got -4 minus 4y equals 16. I don't know the y. Oh. I actually have to solve this equation. Okay, so to figure out the y in this one, it's a little trickier. It's not just plug it in. I can't just toss it in my calculator. I actually have to solve this equation, which is fine. You guys know how to solve linear equations. You guys have been doing an awesome job with it. I'm going to add the 4 over. I've got 20 equals negative 4y. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4, and I'm going to get y equals negative 5. And now I have a point. Negative 2, negative 5. That's a point on my graph. Okay, I'll do one more of these with you guys. Let's do 1. X is 1. I'm trying to figure out the y. I got 2 minus 4y equals 16. Subtract the 2. I'm going to get negative 4y equals 14. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. I'm going to get y equals negative 3.5. So when x is 1, y is negative 3.5. There's another point. Why don't you pause real quick, generate the rest of these points. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Pause, give it a try, please. Okay, so for 5, you should get negative 1.5. For 7, you should get negative 0.5. For 3, you should have gotten negative 2.5. And for 0, you should have gotten negative 4. What you'll notice about all those points is, let's connect them real quick. It is a line. But it wasn't y equals mx plus b. So how is it a line? Well, the answer to that is, it is y equals mx plus b. It's just rearranged. It's just messed up. Okay? So if instead of making a table, you recognize that this could be in y equals mx plus b form, there is a shortcut. Instead of doing these equations over and over and over and solving them, it's kind of a pain. You could have just rearranged the original equation. What makes something in y equals mx plus b form? The y's got to be by itself. So we could have taken this, and this is what I would recommend doing. It's kind of the fancy way to do it, but actually the easier way. Get the y by itself. Isolate the y. How do you do that? Well, let's subtract 2x. Got to be a little careful here. Let's divide both sides by negative 4. Be careful here. We got to divide both of those things by negative 4. I have the y by itself. 16 divided by negative 4, you can put it in your calculator. It's negative 4. Negative 2 divided by negative 4 is 0.5. And this is y equals mx plus b, but it's kind of flipped around, right? It's got like the number first and the x second. You can just rearrange it, right? It's just 0.5x minus 4. You just like literally put the 0.5x first. And now it's in y equals mx plus b. One little note here. I don't like it when the m is a decimal. I'd rather have it be a fraction. Why? Because rise over run works better when it's a fraction, right? You want it to be a fraction. 0.5, what's the fraction version? 1/2. You can always type in a decimal and hit math, enter, enter on your graphing calculator, and it will make it into a fraction. But you guys know 0.5 is 1/2. And now this looks totally normal. Okay. Go down to negative 4. That's your starting point. That's your y-intercept. Slope is 1/2, positive 1/2. So I'm going to go up 1, right 2. Rise 1, run 2. Up 1, right 2. Oops. Put a point. Up 1, right 2, put a point. Up 1, right 2, put a point. And I'm just going to continue that pattern, and you get those same points, and you generate the graph. That way is an easier way to graph that. Okay? Take a look at number 3. Think about it for a second. I have a feeling some of you guys will have a good idea here, which is it's not in y equals mx plus b, but I bet I could make it that. How? I'll just do a little algebra. Little distributing. Now it's really close to y equals mx plus b. It's y equals 3x minus 7. Done. Forget about spending all that time making a table. Just get it in y equals mx plus b. What's your y-intercept? -7. What's my slope? It's 3, but I'm going to write it as 3 over 1. That way it'll help me do the rise over run thing. So I'm going to rise 3, run 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1. And I'm going to kind of continue that pattern. Down 3, left 1, and I got this line. If I ask you to do a question like this on the test, if I give you a table, I want you to be able to make a table. But the cool part is, once you have the graph, making a table is super easy. If you have the graph already, the table is just supposed to be some points. I'm just going to look at my graph and say, oh, that red point is 0, -7. Oh, that green point is 1, -4. And look, I can actually make the table from the graph if I use the shortcut to graph it, which is cool. Here, I can grab these points real quick. Look, it's kind of silly to do, but it's cool to be able to do. And if I ask you to do this on a test, I'd like you to be able to take the graph. If you made the graph right, you should be able to grab some points. -1, -9, boom. Oh, sorry, I grabbed that one wrong. It should be -1, -10. Come on, Mr. Covey. Cool, and you could generate the table that way. Again, you don't have to use the shortcut. You could have just taken this, made the table, plotted the points, but I think the shortcut's pretty cool. You guys like shortcuts. I know you guys. Weird. Weird. Definitely weird. What's weird? There's not even an x. A couple ways to think about it. One way to think about it is, well, if there's no x, then when x is -3, well, y is 6. When x is 10, y is 6. When x is 2, y is 6. Y is just 6. No matter what you make your x, your y is just 6. So, plot those points. Do-do-do. Do-do-do. Doesn't matter where you go on the x-axis, your y is just always 6. What does that make? It makes a horizontal line. And maybe some of you guys remembered that y equals a number is always just a horizontal line, always. And then there's one other connection you might have made, which is this actually is in y equals mx plus b form. It doesn't really look like it, but it is. It looks like this. It's y equals mx plus b. It's just, what's the mx? Well, the m was 0. That's why you didn't even see it. It was invisible. Which makes sense when you go to do your slope, because your slope is 0. Oh, you mean like go up 0 over 1, up 0 over 1, up 0 over 1, up 0. Oh, so you don't go up at all. And that's why it's a horizontal line. Cool. Okay. Why don't you... Last one. Thanks for sticking with me. I know this is a little bit long. You guys do an awesome job. We'll practice this on the block day. Why don't you go ahead, pause, and you try and do number 5. Okay? You try. Do whatever technique you want. Okay? I'm going to use the shortcut. I'm going to look at this and say, wait, get the y by itself. I'm going to subtract 3x over. I'm going to divide both sides by 4. I'm going to get y equals 6 minus 3/4 x. And then I'm going to rearrange it and say, oh, you mean -3/4 x plus 6. Notice in that last step, sometimes kids get confused about this. I'm not doing any algebra. I'm literally just moving the b to the back and the x part, the mx part to the front. I'm not changing the plus minuses at all. I'm literally just rearranging them. So don't let that little blue step mess you up. Like you're not doing anything. You're just rewriting it in different order. No adding, subtracting. Cool. Okay. Y equals mx plus b. My b is 6. My m is negative 3/4, down 3, right 4. Down 3, right 4. Down 3, right 4. Excuse me. I'll continue backwards. Up 3, left 4. And I got it. There's that line. If I asked you to make a table, that's cool. I have the graph. I can just read the points off the graph I have. I think that one was at 12, negative 3. And then maybe I'd have to do one more myself. But now that I have in y equals mx plus b form, oops, I'm just going to pick x's 5. Negative 3/4 times 5 is negative 15/4 plus 6. You can plug that in your calculator. You get 2.25. So 5, 2.25. Oh, yeah, that lines up with the graph, too. Cool. Awesome. Thank you guys for watching this. You guys can start on your homework. I encourage you guys to work together. This idea of graphing stuff by making a table or using the y equals mx plus b shortcut is the other big topic in this unit. Cool. Solving equations, graphing. In this whole class, about the last thing I'll say, in the whole class, we're going to learn a lot of different cool math things and a lot of different things you guys don't know anything about. But the ideas of solving and graphing are going to come up in almost every unit. It's a big part of algebra, is like solving, graphing. Cool. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I will be back in class for the block day, and I'll be available tomorrow morning for PLT. Remember, it's in room 275 with Mrs. Fry. Cool. Thanks, guys.